Hey, you! I'm your nutrition coach. My name is Jackie Poole. Welcome to Happiness is a Healthier Habit. Let's get today's episode started. Hello, my friend. I am so glad you are here. Let me just tell you, if you are listening, you are making my day. Today, I wanted to make sure and remind you that you have to be your own advocate. I don't know what it is about this year, but I've just had a few encounters with individuals that really seem to think that there's always only one route, one way to do things. There is like no other way. And so I am getting personal today, like I do in all my podcasts, because I really want to make sure that I'm being vulnerable and honest, but also that these are going to resonate with you, right? It's not going to be like, oh, it just happens to her, because it happens to many of us. And this is not even about me. It's about the experience that I recently had that really left me frustrated, pissed off, like fuming, like I was heartbroken. I was so frustrated. I was heated. I mean, all of the things, like I was boiling inside because it's upsetting. And the more I see this, the more I actually witness this like firsthand, I am more determined than ever to make episodes like these, because this is exactly why I do these, because I really want to share experiences like this and why you need to be your own advocate when it comes to your health and the health of loved ones. This episode is going to be very real and really just annotating like the experience I have had this past few days, and I had to marinate on it a little bit because it wasn't even about me, and I'm so glad that my mom trusts me and she's learned so much from me, because I was just in a space where I had to remove myself from being in the room after her visit. So let's get started with today's episode. Okay, so here is the story, the doctor's visit. So it was Tuesday. I am homeschooling, so I grabbed my kids. My mom said she needed to get, she wanted some support from me to kind of tell her what other labs to add, because I saw that she only got a few from her doctor, and I was like, well, you should tell him to do, I told her to add vitamin D, CRP, CRP, and, just to give her that support and that comfort. And I was very excited to go, honored that she always invites me to her things if I can make it. So I brought the kids, I brought their workbooks, we were ready to go. The appointment was at 8:30. So, I was just there for support and just to ask a few questions, about how we can do this without medication. And really, I was just... the whole visit, I was just left stunned, right? The moment I asked about, bringing some labs and, maybe we can add this, maybe we need more information, the doctor just shut me down completely. Not only did he scoff at some of the things that I had to say, he went on to say that really agonizing my mom because she was like, I really want to try it I really want to be intentional these next 3 months about my diet, how I'm eating. And he was just like, what are you going to do different? It's not going to change. It's not going to move, the needle. And so just like that, without, asking, hey, how's your stress? How's you sleeping? We need more information. Can we get some, more labs done? Yes, I agree with that. Instead, he just really said, nothing's going to change. You need to be on this medication. Your numbers are too high. And there was no conversation. He was this is how it is. You need this. It doesn't matter your genetic disposition. You need to do this. Granted, there's no family history of her numbers were for cholesterol. And there's no history of stroke. There's no history of insulin or diabetes in her side, or she's never struggled with that. There is no alcohol use. She is very active. She is in a lot of stress, I'll tell you that. But there was no conversation. There was no curiosity, just very dismissive, very condescending. And the fact that there was just no way impacting him on me or us on him. It was just like, it's my way. This is how it's done. And it was just very sad. I felt a wave of anger. Like I felt just flushed, hot. I was sweating because I was just PO'd. I was just angry at how he was talking to my mom. Because I know that lifestyle does matter. I've seen people reverse it. I follow a lot of individuals that really talk about this topic, and I may be naive and don't understand a lot, but I get this concept. I understand, the possible changes that you could be doing. And granted, when I asked about these added labs and the things that we can do, the first thing he said was, well, insurance doesn't cover it. And I was like, well, that doesn't matter if insurance covers it or not. We are here because we have insurance, and we are seeing you because we have insurance. But before, my mom didn't have insurance, and she would get her test and go to her yearly checkup somewhere else. And so because I know lifestyle matters, I've seen people do wonderful things backed by science. But what really hurt is that he just was not open to anything. My mom tried to tell him, after he's like, well, what are you going to change? I was like, well, I really need to focus on my diet. He never once asked her about how stressed my mom has been lately with my dad's diagnosis. She recently broke part of her arm, elbow bone. I can't remember what part. And she's been dealing with that and recuperating with that. And she's been through a lot of stress. She hasn't been sleeping well. The doctor not once talked about, stress levels. And when you go research, stress has a lot of impact on hormones and body and how it manifests. And if you're really truly into health, you know that how you deal and manage with stress, your body is going to manifest it one way or another. And not once did he ask my mom about her stress and what she's doing to alleviate it or, manage it. He was just very short to the point. You need to be on these medications or you will have a stroke or a heart attack. And just blunt like that. No feeling, no nothing. And again, very condescending when I try to enter the conversation as if I am just there to accompany her. And he is the end all be all. And I just think how many people go through this every single day. And it's not just him. I'm sure there's lots and multiple physicians that do this, and individuals that think doctors because they went to school, because they got their degrees, because they, learned everything. There's a place and time for everything. But when you do the research, when you educate yourself, which you can, there is something called the internet where you can find everything and anything on there. You can be as familiarized with a topic as they are. Just because you didn't have a degree does not mean that you leave your fate to a random stranger. You become the advocate. You need to be familiar with what's going on in your body and the options that you have, because knowledge is power. And if you know that, hey, maybe I don't want to do this, I want to do that, let me give it a shot. That doctor shut that opportunity down in a heartbeat. And there's lots of people in that industry where they just think that physicians and people with degrees, well, I need to listen to them because they went to school, because, they know better. You better, and you can inform yourself a lot more than they are, because science has not caught up in the modern medicine of today. And that was just very overwhelming to sit there. And here's what I want you to hear loud and clear. Your daily choices do matter every single day. I want to talk about and transition into some of the things that you can do for improving your lifestyle without being dependent on statins. Your body is not deficient on insulin medication, on diabetes medication, on statins, on, any of the medications. There's a time and place for all of those things, yes. My mom is not a candidate for that. And same thing with supplements. You don't need supplements. They are good to have, and I love them, but you don't need them. Lifestyle truly does make a difference. And I do want to talk about the things that you can do now to really impact specifically cholesterol and heart health today. Okay, so decades of research show that diet, movement, and stress management can dramatically impact cholesterol and heart health. Number one is going to be soluble fiber, okay? This means flaxseed, chia seeds, nuts, oats, anything that has fiber that is natural whole food sources is going to be literally pulling the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, from your bloodstream. So that is a really quick fix that we can have. Now, I always recommend for my clients, my people who are having digestion issues, to really work on having enough soluble fiber. On a bad day, when I'm not trying and I'm not being intentional, I can get maybe 12 grams of fiber when I'm tracking or things like that. That's not a lot, okay? We need to be intentional, especially when we are being diagnosed with these, numbers and things like that. Not that cholesterol is bad. Our body needs cholesterol. Our brain needs it to function, okay? It's not something that we want to get rid of, but we want to make sure they are in a balanced state. They are in where they need to be. So how we do that naturally is through adding a lot of fiber, okay? This is really going to help. So the goal would be to get from 30 to 40 grams of fiber from your whole foods, okay? Number two, regular exercise. something that needs to be said is, while walking is great, movement, any kind of movement is going to be amazing to your health. We want to make sure that we are being intentional and getting those 10-minute daily walks. Those can be attached to after meals, first thing in the morning. You want to make sure you get those done, but also you want to make sure you are strength training 2 to 4 times a week. Okay, if you're new to strength training, it is a must. It's not optional. It is not something that you need to choose. It is something that it needs to be done because we need muscle. Our muscle helps our hormones. Our hormones talk to our whole body. Our cholesterol is impacted by our hormones, and as we age as women, our hormones fluctuate so much and it impacts us, okay? And that is just another way to manage stress as well. So when we regular exercise, not only do we do cardiovascular activity such as walking, we need to make sure we are strength training 2 to 4 times a day. 2 to 4 times a week. Okay, be very intentional about that. The next thing would be having healthy fats. This is going to come from, olive oil, which you don't want to make sure you don't really cook with olive oil. I would suggest cooking with avocado oil, but other healthy fats could come from walnuts. They can come from fatty fish like salmon, sardines. I'm not a fan of those things. It's just sardines in a can. But salmon, I love, I have a really good quick recipe on Instagram where you can just air fry it, and I season it with these awesome things, and it's so good. But adding these, especially salmon, it is my favorite fish to eat, better than cod, better, I love me some cod tacos, but salmon, the profile for it is just so much better in the omegas. So we want to make sure we're getting at least some kind of fish, whether it's cod, omegas, sardines, at least twice a week, okay? That needs to be incorporated in your weekly meals, not only to help with the to lower inflammation, but it's also going to improve heart function, okay? That is one of the things that I would add, and as a must as well, to your routine in your everyday meals, whether you're, however you want to cook it. Right now I'm into my air fryer, and I love doing that. And actually, Butcher Box, the way they send it is they already pre-packaged, so it's so easy to cook when I just make rice and green beans or something like that. Next is going to be managing stress, which isn't just, nice, or, you're having like chronic physical stress that raises levels. Again, this is not about us being, or me being, anti-medicine. There's always a time and place. I remember a couple of years ago, Julian had staph infection and we had to go to the hospital, and they gave him a ton of antibiotics because one wasn't working. They had to test for what kind of staph. We were in the hospital for like 3 days. Okay, medicine has its place. I can't stress this enough. And speaking of my mom, this stress, we had a whole ordeal with our family, last year and this year, with my dad and him having, going through this, and it's just one thing after another. Chronic stress physically, listen to this, physically raises cholesterol. And sometimes, again, medication is necessary, but to say that lifestyle doesn't matter, that is completely false. So, the next thing I want to talk about is how to advocate for yourself. So, what do you do when your doctor dismisses you? Okay? Don't be like me and walk out, because I told my mom, hey, I gotta go. I have a hair appointment. I can't stay longer. She stayed with that, but I know she was strong. I gave her that support. The doctor went over the rest of the results with her, which I had already gone with her. And And so we left it at that, right? But I removed myself from that particular doctor, and I can tell you my mom won't be going to him again for her next yearly checkup. But here are a few steps that I think would be really good to have to advocate for yourself. Okay, go prepared. Bring your labs. They obviously have your labs, but if you want to print them out. A list of what you are doing or what you are going to be doing, and ask questions. Okay, ask questions. So all the information that I've gotten from cholesterol and things like that, I've learned throughout the podcasts that I've submerged myself in throughout the years. Specific physicians that talk about it. I've read books on cholesterol or Audible, and I've also have Google and ChatGPT, and really helped me hone in on like what things can I do, because the physician really was hesitant about ordering those labs, but luckily I am a nutrition coach and I am able to order my own labs. And so he ordered it for my mom, but I actually went online and looked for a more extensive profile lipid panel that I ordered my mom. And even though it's not covered by insurance, she has that option, and I ordered it for her. So whenever she goes get the other blood work for her physician, she's going to do the one that I ordered for her, because we don't have to wait for the physician to make a call like that. And I actually suggested for her to order other labs as well, because hormones do affect cholesterol. And that's something that, as a wellness exam, he didn't even order hemoglobin A1C, he didn't order insulin. He did like 4 tests that were very basic, test. And so as a practitioner, you want to make sure you're getting an extensive panel, not just the 4 basic tests that everybody is ran with, because there's so much more. He was very hesitant about ordering vitamin D as well, and so, which I don't understand why. Vitamin D is so important, is involved in majority of the body's processes, and he gave me a whole speech on that as well, which I'm not going to dive into. But going back to being prepared, bring your questions, write things down, look for things, search for things to make sure you cover your bases, even if you don't understand them. Like, hey, I read that this, can you talk to me a little bit about that? And a doctor that is open and is willing to hear you, it's a doctor worth staying with, because this physician was just very dismissive. He said that the test that I wanted does not matter, that is just very in a natural pathway. And so I could tell that scared him, that he was not very knowledgeable in those exams. So he didn't really understand the power of the information that those exams come to bring, because those tests could really guide us into even telling us like, hey, this is what the results are. You probably should get on medication. Like, if the tests were to lean that way, then we would get on medication. If the tests were to lean the other way, it would be like, hey, you don't need to get on medication right now. That's how powerful those tests are. And so go prepared. Use I statements, okay? That would be the next thing. Say, I'd like to explore lifestyle approaches. Can we discuss what that would look like, okay? Be open. And again, if they're shutting these things down, if they're saying that this isn't going to work, please run out the door. That is not the physician you want in your corner, because he is not caring about what you have to say, how you feel. He is caring about the insurance pocket, okay? Because somebody that says that's not covered by insurance, you don't have to do that test, it doesn't matter, they're worried about getting paid, okay? So you need to find a physician that is willing to hear you out and not rush you through the door after, your 5-minute appointment. And again, I am still very heated. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I am so PO'd about that, because it was just so dismissive. Anyways, don't be afraid to get a second opinion, okay? Go to multiple physicians if you need to. If that doctor is not listening to you, if he's saying this is the only way we can do this, that is not the doctor for you. You always need and deserve to get a second healthcare partner, a second opinion, and it comes along with anything else. You know, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you just don't want to go one doctor. You need to hear what others have to say. If the same 5 doctors say the same thing, well, you know, that shows you, okay, you might be onto something. But if one doctor says one thing and the other just says another and one says another, then, you know, that gives you options to what you need to do, but it's not one end all be all, okay? Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because at the end of the day, they're not worried about you. And that is just the hard truth of how the system works. The doctors don't care about you. They care about getting paid and hitting their quota numbers, okay? That is not something that you want. And it is very sad, because I do want to say this. When we left that doctor's office, I had my boys with me. I said that in the beginning of the episode. My son even was able to hear and ask me, why did this doctor sound so rude? Why was he laughing at what you were saying, Mom? That is the power of speech, tone of voice, superiority, if that's how you say it, that even my 10-year-old could hear that the physician was out of line. So, if this episode fired you up like it did me, I want you to take one step today. Okay, just one step. I really want to help you out. I will be giving out a free download of what test to take. I actually did this for my mom, kind of like a little guide, kind of like a game plan of what you need to do. So all you gotta do is email me and say, hey, I want the 5 ways to, lower cholesterol naturally and your 12-week plan. It's very basic, very simple, but just very minuscule things that you need to do to move on and start seeing some changes with your cholesterol. So all you got to do is email me and say that you want that. Okay, the ways to lower your cholesterol naturally. I will send you that and some of Dr. Heitman's statements that I've gathered from ChatGPT, because that was very helpful in me trying to figure out how to help my mom and doing this the right way without hurting her, right? Because her numbers, from what I've gathered, they are a little worrisome. Okay, and I can understand that from the physician, that if her numbers are a certain way, we need to get her on medication now. That is the protocol, right? If this is the result, this is what needs to be done. So that is how the doctor was envisioning it only, but not taking in consideration the rest of the factors that goes along with a human being and the complexity of life and what goes on when, life is happening. And so if this resonated with you, please share this with a friend, family member who might need to hear it. It doesn't matter. I want to make sure that no one feels powerless, about their health. And this could be with anything, right? This was just cholesterol, guys. But the doctor was making it seem like it's a life or death situation. And we are very calm. We are working actively. I've taken my mom and we've talked about things that we need to change. And we're going to be grocery shopping together. And we gave ourselves 3 months to see if we can lower our numbers, right? Naturally, maybe even just incorporating some supplements, because the numbers are kind of high and we need to do kind of everything in our power to do it as naturally as possible, because again, it's not a medication deficiency. We just really got to ask yourself, why is the body doing this? Okay, so I hope you got a lot of value. Thank you for listening, and again, I will chat with you next time. Bye.